Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Extreme Studios in the Pine Hills Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. We are going back to the 80s, kind of, sort of, maybe. But before we get there and talk about Totally Killer, the Amazon Prime movie, which I think is questionable what RDV from the Great Midwest and I are going to be talking about tonight. I wanted to say this, RDV, I thought it was an interesting suggestion. I had only just heard that this movie came out, just like I'd only just
Yeah.
heard, and John Carpenter's name being plastered all over some TV thing on Peacock, which by all reviews it's shit, and he doesn't even really do anything except score it. But I'll probably still watch it anyway. So I was really intrigued because Back to the Future is one of my favorite '80s movies. I think it's a
hmm
nearly flawless movie. I've always argued the point, or at least stated it here on the Extreme Movie Show, there's no such thing as horror comedy because if something's scary, it cannot be funny. It doesn't mean there cannot be irony in it. But here, I think this movie is mislabeled as a slasher because it's got slasher elements to it, but it's really kind of like a whodunit to me. And if you look at it as like a Back to the Future movie with a chick as the lead, um, I think that's the best way to understand it, but it in no way to me is a slasher film, despite what they have with some weird
Yeah.
kills.
So
Overall, I think it was a decent film
let's
we're talking about. What's your
so,
take?
let's go quickly over the cast in this. The
Go
who
ahead.
it is. It's Kira Shipman. You know her. She was in Sabrina: The Chilling Tales Adventures of Sabrina, which was on Netflix. She plays the daughter, the main character in this, who basically ends up going back in time. Her mother is played by oh,
Julie
uh,
Bowen?
Julie Bowen, who still looks good for her age. Modern
Absolutely.
Family. You've seen her
Yeah,
in a couple other stuff besides that too.
that's a
Uh,
smash.
yes, yes. When she goes back, her dad is the. If you also watch Riverdale, the one that played Betty's father, who turned out to be in the killer. He's in here too. Plays her dad in this show or in
He's the
this
Jim
movie.
Broke guy from some older movies.
Yeah, yeah, yes, yeah. Uh, so and then so basically and then I think there's like I tried there was another name and I recognize. No, Randall Park. Randall Park plays this. He plays the sheriff back in the 1987, and I think he plays it perfectly well in here too.
Yeah, you've
So
seen him
that's
before.
your huge cast right there. It's right your celebrities. It's I wouldn't say that they're a celebrities, but I say they're people you were recognize. I've seen this person here. I've seen this person there. Which is always good. Um, anyway, so yeah, that's the cast. Oh yeah, Olivia Holt. Sorry, Olivia Holt plays Julie Bowen's younger self in back in 1987.
Yeah.
So going off the bat, you said I want to suggest this. We read Freaky on here with the Vince Vaughn movie.
Hmm.
And we liked that one. At least I remember liking it. I think you liked it too.
Yeah, I thought it was decent.
Yeah. That was a Blumhouse film. This is Universal, basically Pictures. They're the ones that basically produced it. Um, this was actually. I said this was actually. Wait, hold on. Was this Blum? This is Blumhouse. I got confused. This is Blumhouse. The Freaky was Universal Pictures. All right. So getting into this movie, when I first saw the trailer for this, I got a chuckle out of it because I saw a trailer on Instagram. I was like, oh, it's kind of cute, So then when I decided tonight, yesterday, I was like, you know what? Why don't we just do this? Because this is recent. I know some of the cast members in here too, so we'll give it a shot. Worst thing, it could be really bad, or it could be something really enjoyable.
It could be extreme.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I actually enjoyed this. This was a shocker for me too because I'm not the biggest fan of the main actress, but what, like I said, what worked for me, and as we go through this, is they knew they were a horror comedy thing. It's a horror film, but it's a comedy. It's a dark comedy with a little horror elements. As far as when I say horror elements, I mean there's a slasher going around killing a guy who looks like the Pit Boy from Fallout. The silent face.
Exactly. Yeah, he does. That's a good call there.
Yeah. This movie concludes time travel, people being murdered. It's basically it's kind of, they even mentioned Scream in here, which I thought was ironic. I was like, oh my gosh, the girl actually knows about Scream. And she's from 2023. She's a teenager. She's 16.
Mm-hmm.
Her character's supposed to be. And I was like, wow, I think she's actually watched Scream. Because I figure most people who have seen the new Scream movies have never seen the original, maybe. Or if they even care.
And there's a thought that's true. I would not disagree with that. I'm curious about that.
But overall, though, time travel, people being killed, carnival. This is me being the guy. I'm born '85, so I'm 2 years old when this in 1987. I gotta ask you, being the older gentleman here, This is 1987. How accurate was it to the 80s?
Um, like I've said about Stranger Things, it's a bit hit and miss. The house parties definitely were a thing. I think they could have definitely, because this is in '87, the late '80s, the style was starting to shift clothes wise and hair wise.
Yeah,
You still had a hell of a lot of big hair, and you really did not get the late '80s hair band kind of stuff, other than, of course, the singer on the poster on here or whatever. That was kind of whatever. But let's just get the elephant out of the room because it's going to tie two things together. Your question, and I think the bigger thing about this picture. The girl in here that goes back, I think she does a solid job. She's believable. She's not hot. She's not ugly. She's got a look. She does it well. She handles some dialogue, I think, very well. I think she did a strong job here. What this movie does is they almost, I don't know how intentional it is with the writers, but it's definitely there in a lot of scenes. It's almost like, we'd say she's like a fish out of water, stranger in a strange land kind of scenario because she goes back in time. But she's got an element of modern day wokeness in her. And
hmm
so what the funny part to this movie was how the '80s responded to her, like the guy
yes.
burping in her face, or which is like, no, hey, no, appropriate touch, inappropriate touching, whatever it was,
He grabs his crotch, and he's like,
yeah, and her young mom, when she meets her and all that, nobody dressed like Molly Ringwald. That's bullshit. They never did. But the whole Mean Girls group thing was a thing, and it still is to this day, right? But when she's like, "Why don't you just fuck off and die?" and it's not really mad or not angry about it, I'm like, yeah, that was totally '80s. They got
yeah,
some of the stuff right, um, but at the same time, too, you could tell how they have the smart intellectual African American woman be the one that designs the time machine. How you've got the guys basically being dopey, nonsensical characters like the dad in here. The dad,
yeah,
the Jim Bro guy, I thought he was fine, and when he came out of the
yeah,
pool like all well,
yeah,
splashing his hair around and all that, that was
yeah.
pretty accurate. Oh, they just broke up again. Now it's my turn to hook up with him. Okay, let's go have sex on a waterbed. That was all totally believable, right? And it was kind of innocent. So I hate to say it because again, it's not really a slasher to me. It's more of a thriller a little bit because it's done
Yes.
well. I don't dislike her as main character. I just have to go, gosh, I really want to like her more in this role, but they flipped it where you're rooting for the '80s. You're not rooting for her, right? Because she's trying to go back in time to find the fact that
Yeah.
modern day time, in a great opening scene reminiscent of Scream, her mom gets attacked by somebody that appears to be the killer from 35 years ago that
Yes.
stabbed three different, apparently unrelated young girls on their 16th birthday 16 times each, something like that.
Yeah.
And so she goes back in time to that date. And if you've seen Back to the Future, you know exactly what's going to happen. And it kind of
Yes.
does.
Which
It's
they
still done
reference
well.
heavily in this movie. She even says she goes to the cops. Is like,
Yeah,
"Have
did
you
you
ever
see
seen
it?
Back to the Future?"
Oh,
He's
but I
like,
heard it's good. They were kind of funny.
"That's Randall Parks." Randall Parks. So he's like, "No, I've seen it." The other dude's like, "Yeah, but I kind of wanna see it." He's like, "I don't need to see that crap." You know?
But you know what they did get right too? Lots of smoking. When she does the Marty McFly thing and she's going back to the amusement park there and the beaver
Yeah.
heads there at the entrance, wherever the lady that's got her kids in the balloons and
Yes.
she's got the outfit on and she's smoking up the
Windbreakers.
chimney. That is '80s, bro. I'm telling you.
And then she's like, well, he's like, well, and I love it. He says, like, do you know Pam Miller? And it's like, oh, you mean Pam? Sure, she's in school where you should be. He's like, oh, can you give me a lift? He's like, no, the lady's like, I give you a lift. It's like, no, lady, you could be a serial killer. It's like, really, wearing a fanny pack and all this stuff. You think I'm the killer? And it's like, so she drives in the station wagon. It's just full of smoke inside
Clark
there.
Griswold mobile.
Yes, yes. Her two little kids who were originally with her at the carnival or the park thing are in the back of the car. I'm like, why aren't they in school?
I know because mommy took him out to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let
So
me ask you this, because you're not really a hardcore blood and guts guy, and I love it at times when it's appropriate.
yeah,
There's a huge difference between '80s movies and what people call slasher today. '80s movies, they kind of kept it simple, dull, and stupid, like your Friday the 13th and
yeah.
your later Halloweens and all that. This movie
Was tame
fails
compared to
trying to
those.
do it because I was going to ask you what you thought about the kills.
I would say as far as the kills, he's just stabbing him. You know, like I said, it's not like you get close up like Friday the 13th. You like, it's not like you hear like what's that, and then the drill goes to your throat like Kevin Bacon and getting Friday the 13th. It's
None
not
of
like
that.
that. None of that stuff. They really didn't want to focus too much on the gore. It's kind of like Riverdale, where people were getting murdered.
Right.
Like you would, unlike Riverdale, they showed it, but you saw like everything's kind of like, oh my
Very
gosh,
sloppy.
yeah, it wasn't.
Not graphic at all.
Yes,
Messy.
and sometimes I think that works for this movie though because it was meant to be a comedy. Had this been more serious, they would have went more with gore. Uh, but obviously, I love this because the fact that she brings up, Kira Shipman brings up the movie Scream. You ever watch Scream? There might be two killers. It's like, oh, it's a movie from the future. One of the girls in the killer targets in the original story, is that one of the girls dies in the garage. She's found in the garage, which is a nod to Scream.
Mhm.
It's a different though kill though.
Or
She's
even
not
the
like,
opening
yeah.
attack on the mother, I think you
Yeah.
could argue.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I love that. She's like, I've been waiting 35 fucking years for this, bitch. It's like,
It was a nice little opening scene. She fights back.
she's got. Yeah. I was thinking like, oh my gosh, like, and the thing is, like, now the killer in this, even in this, he gets stabbed a couple times or whatever, but it doesn't really phase him though, which is kind of like a nod to Michael Myers kind of
Yes.
thing,
Yes.
which I did like that. So there was some elements like that. I love the fact that they played on the tropes. Like is it now the Mean Girls? Yes, that's girl and all dressing all together. There are, I mean, you may not experience it, but I wouldn't doubt there are some girls that they were all kind of like shy like that, and they don't want to fit in. So if you weren't
It was
wearing
just a click thing. That's all.
they're not dressing like Molly Wingro, but they're like, if you're not dressing these type of clothes like this,
Exactly. Yeah.
like Heather's, same
Yeah.
thing.
That's a good.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
No, Heather's was funny.
yes. So if you're not dressing like us, you can't be one of us. Same with basically a clique. Anyway, so I did like that. I did. Then you had the shady guy who had the van, the nerdy, and they're like, oh, who's this? Who's this guy here? And it's like, oh, we don't know. He's a nice guy and stuff. And she thinks that he's the killer. But it turns out he's not. But he's been keeping tabs on people too.
Hmm.
Turns out to be an ally. She meets his other nerdy kid who basically ends up, he's another one he's rejected at the party because that's where the first murder is supposed to take place. She's supposed to try to say Tiffany, but because this and for a lot of us who watch time travel movies, whenever you go back to time, there's always a ripple effect. And I love to even explain it in movies, like her friends, like, really, you don't know about it. It's like, say time is like a river. You go downstream, and then it's but if you get upstream, you run back upstream. You can jump back in. You can cause a ripple effect. It gets small changes. And I'm just thinking like. I was wondering, like, because we saw this in Back to the Future when he comes back home, it's for the better. Now he started with a shitty life, and he was, I was wondering how much the change was me. I was wondering that in the movie if they did this,
Hmm.
because a lot of people have seen Back to the Future, so you should know how to do a good time travel movie. You have the blueprints. There's been several attempts, but overall, though, I gotta say this movie, it kept me entertained. Um, I would really recommend it. I would say it's for me. It's about a 7 out of 10, 7 or 8.
I had
It's
watched the show. I forget if it was on Hulu or
but
Peacock or whatever it was, one of the streaming ones, and it was called Physical.
yeah,
And it's about a woman. Um, I believe it's in San Diego with her husband, and she ends up getting into the fitness binge, which in the early '80s blew up. With the leggings and the dancing and all that. And so the story is about her trying to become an
yeah,
independent woman and filming her VHS tapes and making money and all that. But it's not a funny show. There's a lot of dark stuff going on with what happens with the business side of it and everything else there too. And now it's not something you shake your head of and you walk away going,
yeah,
God, that was deep. But
yeah,
it's done very sarcastically in a negative way, but it's done well where the father's a really supportive guy, but you would argue back then a guy who was that way might get what happened to him in this show. And one of the issues I do have with this movie though, and it's kind of more of a broader thing, so it's not necessarily here, is that I kept thinking that, okay, the people who wrote this don't know the '80s, but maybe they slapped together enough stuff where it appeared that they did, because I mentioned that before in Stranger Things, they
yeah,
get some right and some wrong. And it's interesting to me how here's what my gut tells me about this, and you tell me what you think. My gut tells me that they wanted to make this character to go back in time, and a primary part of it was to illustrate how, for lack of a better word, bad '80s behavior has. Like when she comes out, she sees the mascot, right? Looks like Cleveland Indians, and she says something like, "Oh,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
racist,"
This is back.
or
Yeah.
the touching thing, whatever. But when the guy like belches in her face, I'm like, yeah, a guy would do that. He would pick you up and toss you out of a party, and he wouldn't be worried about
So
social media or anything. I feel like that's what they try doing is to make her sympathetic, and maybe in today's terms by saying,
yeah.
"Oh, we got a strong woman here. Let's just put her in a position to show just how bad the '80s were and how it was to women and men and all that in
So
general."
they might have done that, but I think it backfired more. Because basically she started off being a selfish brat. She wanted nothing to
Exactly.
do with her mother,
You
and
couldn't root
she
for
learned
her.
humility by going back in the '80s, learning that hey, uh, not everything's about you and all that stuff. None of that shit matters. The racism, because there wasn't freaking racism. Like there is today. Today, it's the idea of racism is here. Racism ended. There's always going to be some racists, but a lot of people will get down on that person, and then they'll beat the shit out of them.
Yeah.
Like I said, it is more. We live more in a media state telling you this is what it is, but unless you actually are smart enough to understand, that's not how it is. Because you think because you don't live there, oh, somebody tells you this is what it is there, people automatically believe. It's so stupid. But getting to point to this movie, so basically, yes, it's her mom gets attacked, and she ends up being so then everybody questions her, and I think, oh, maybe your dad did it because your dad didn't like this guy. There's this guy doing tours. He's kind of shady guy, and while she's walking with her friend, she gets attacked by the killer, the Sweet 16 killer, who basically killed her mom. Now wants to kill her. She runs into this phone booth, and she's hiding in there, but she accidentally turns it on by accident, hitting a button. And then he stabs the basically the phone booth, not knowing that neither did. There's actually her someone had been building a time machine in there, and well, it sent her back in time. It was the most plot heavy, or not plot convenient, whatever, but it works, whatever. So she goes. So her whole thing is she wants to find her mom. She wants to try and stop the murders, but because she's trying to change things, well, it would cause the ripple effect. The murders don't happen where they're supposed to be. People die out of order. It's gonna lead down to where she's about to, they try to basically catch a killer in the House of Horrors, using one of the girls who's supposed to be murdered as bait. She ends up getting killed, regardless. But then they take on the killer. It's revealed to be, I'm not gonna say who it is, but it's, we find out, oh shit, it's that guy, but then something else happens. Well, then they thought they killed the killer, but it's actually the future self apparently came back in time too. Which I had a feeling it was going to happen because I wanted it to happen because that would make it cool, and I think that makes it better too. Thinking you killed one zone and then there's another one. Reference back to Scream, 2 killers, and you find out. Like I said, I'm not going to spoil who the second killer is in the future is. I'm not going to because So I'll leave that for you guys, but oh my gosh, what is it called? The spinatron or gravitron thing in there.
Quantum drop or
quantum drop, right at the end. They shown this. It's where you lay right in the back and it's spinning real fast. You're against the wall, dude. I love that. They got rid of those.
Yeah,
those are awesome. She ends up her friend because she contacted her friend's mother back in in '87. She helped, and her friend's mother who'd been secretly working on a time machine thing for this. And and she hooks it up to the quantum drop thing, and she's able to get back home. Finds out she has an older brother, apparently, because she tried to keep her mom and dad apart, but ended up put them together earlier. So now she has a 35-year-old brother.
Yeah. A little different.
A little different. He comes in, and she's confronted by her friend and her friend's mother, and kind of tell her itself, things will change. Instead of her mom being obsessed with Molly Ringwald and her dad dressing up like with the muscle shirt, making fun of Zac Efron. They're dressed as Mr. and Mrs. Smith, so a little rip effect. Nothing really big a thing that'll change, But the only thing was the brother. He's the older brother now, which is kind of weirded out by that. I honestly I don't know. I'd like to see a sequel to this maybe or something like, because I want to know, is she gonna stay woke or is she gonna realize that, hey, you gotta maybe she learns a few things. We don't know, but at the end. There is, because this was 2023, is such a woke thing. Her character was her older brother is gay. You see him in the credits. You see him with his other partner, and then you have a little black, that little black kid, and that's all you see. And I kind of rolled my eyes at that shit, but
I
it's
definitely
expected because her character was woke. She started out in a woke, 2023. So of course, at the end, her, she's gonna, her brother's gonna be just equally as fucked up, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
because you bring up an interesting point here, because we don't typically delve into the politics of something, but that's something that I think is a good way of describing this film, because you can argue this film was done pretty well. Maybe if you're younger, if you're older, you might go, "Oh, it didn't hit the potential that it could have,"
yeah,
because it's done well. The budget looks good. You can tell early on, if you've seen a lot of these types of films, that it's setting up the characters, and everyone you meet is going to be important, whether it's the
yeah,
podcaster guy, the parents, the people at school. And so you recognize, okay, let me sit back, let me settle in and see how this plays out. And that was kind of enjoyable,
yeah,
especially since, after the opening gambit, they kind of take their time setting up. I thought, okay, that's smart. And some dialogue here and there, whatever. But I think the whole idea of the premise here is interesting, in that, what if, because to me, you want to root for a character, and so are you rooting for somebody today who's woke to go back and change the 80s, or is somebody going to watch this, go back to the 80s, realize how fun the 80s were, which they captured that a little bit, I think, the freedom
yeah,
of it. You're not weighed down by supposedly all the stuff you have to care about because people say you do. And do you come back as a changed person? Obviously, this film, I think, really tried to do it the other way and say, oh, the 80s were dumb and stupid, because the 80s weren't just a bunch of airheads and jocks and everyone was stupid and dumb. People, the one thing that a lot of these movies don't get is a lot of people in the 80s had ambition, as far as wanting to work, wanting to go get their car, for freedom, to do all the stuff that a lot of younger people
yeah,
today don't really want to do, and don't realize that there's a bigger, longer
yeah.
period of when people actually do that, like move out of the house, get their first apartment,
So
whatever.
I feel like this movie just basically showed you that, if you were not a part of, she was not born in the, born in the 80s, obviously, so she doesn't know what the 80s are. She probably goes back and she's just offended by this because she's never lived it. It's so, and it shows you people are offended by things they don't understand, have never experienced. So of course there's a lot of people like here like, oh my gosh, oh, the 80s sound horrible, all this, I mean, there was people did stuff, it's she's got her rape alarm and all that stuff. It's like, like, unfortunately, there's gonna be rapists no matter how many laws you put into place. As I said, carry a gun. uh
There's no they would have had that in here.
no, but like I said, though, it just goes to show you that she's the modern woke idiot. And I hate using the word woke, but they always use, a lot of people use the word woke against it because they think it's empowerment. But a lot of people turned it around and said, you're just an idiot.
Yeah.
But I'll stop using the word woke. I'll just say progressive.
Progressive, yes. Modern, progressive.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Certainly not
Indoctrinated.
elevated horror.
No.
We'll save that for A24
But
films.
like I said, she's the indoctrinated. She's she's the Zoomer. She's not a millennial in this case, because she's supposed to be a 16-year-old. And she's going back and realizing that no one gives a shit about your personal needs, your personal space. Everyone, it was the doggy dog world. And she's like, oh my gosh, she's just so offended, just scared and just nervous. And I loved it. I love the fact that, that she was kind of like taking out her element.
It did backfire.
Yeah,
and I don't think that was the intention. So that's where the film kind of fails. So you're right about that.
But I gotta say, yes. So if you're looking for an actual movie that is more with teenagers and actually slashers, and it's a lot more gore, more serious, Babysitter Killer, or what it's called, Babysitter.
The Babysitter, the one from a couple years ago with the blonde.
Yeah. It's actually and it has, what's her name? Oh, Bella Thorne.
Is it Bella Thorne?
She's a redhead cheerleader in that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And that's Stephen Amell. Robbie Amell is in there too. It's the jock. Yeah. yes. Like I said, this was, I would say, for those of you weirdos that like Hocus Pocus, this is a better movie than Hocus Pocus. Sorry, Pixel. I know you like Hocus Pocus, but this was more like adult.
You like what you like, that's the thing.
Yes.
Speaking of likes, because we only got a couple more weeks till Halloween, I just wanted to give a rough update to everybody listening on what's upcoming for Saturday night. It looks like our schedule should be able to fit this in, where 6:30, Professor Pix and I for Xtreme TV will be covering the next couple episodes of the season 1 of Mission Impossible. I believe 11 and 12, or 13 or 14, whatever it is. And at 6 o'clock, we are looking at doing a. It's a film we're doing it RDV because it's something we felt like okay maybe you wouldn't like this type of film, but we'll do that.
Yeah.
We're it's not 100%, but it's probably about 80-90% here. I really wanted to do the tire one, but we're going to be doing.
Go ahead, do it. Do it.
No, you and I'll probably do that next Tuesday. Actually, I was what I was thinking. I wanted you to get your take on that too. But so, let me back up. 7 o'clock, the main show. All three of us. It's going to be the Dan Curtis's version of Dracula from 1974 with Jack Palance in it, which is it's good. So it's going to be like. It is going to be a Dan Curtis production for those of you that care, not a Quinn Martin production. It's definitely going to have a lot of smog and fog machines, lights, all that kind of stuff. It's a very gothic-y feel, and Jack Palance is in it. I've seen it before. It's decent. But if you liked that kind of stuff, check it out. I believe it's on Tubi. Next week, you and I may be doing one called, and I believe that this is the correct name. It's one word. It's called Rubber. And what it is a tire that it's French, so it doesn't make sense, but that's the histrionics to it. And it's about a tire that's a car tire, ladies and gentlemen, that is stalking this woman for some reason and wanting to kill her. So if you watch the trailer for Rubber, decide if you want to watch it or not. It's ludicrous and absurd and extreme, and that's why I'm interested in it. Because the opening trailer is cops are driving down, looks like a desert highway. The tire's rolling around. Tire comes to stop. They come to a stop. The cops look at each other. Lights are blaring. They get out of the car, or they're sitting there looking like, "What the hell?" The camera shot from the tire's perspective, and so you see the tire and the edge of the camera shot.
It's a Michael Mann shot,
and it is a Michael Mann shot. Yes, it's a low tire shot. Exactly. He made that for the most part.
I know.
The tire, because it's completely stopped, turns around 180 degrees. And then starts speeding up to him. It's got the slasher scene where the girl goes into the hotel room to take a shower and the water's on. She thinks somebody's doing it, and she takes the curtain, she moves it back, and the tire is standing there in the tub staring at her.
Are you saying it's a hit and run kind of movie?
Reckless endangerment.
You'll be tired after watching this movie.
Yeah. I think we're either going to do one of two films at 6 o'clock for a half hour. We're either going to do Bird with a Crystal Plumage, which is an Argento film from 1970, or a David Cronenberg film called Rabbit. Both of them are going to be a bit grisly and violent. If that's your thing, we're going for a bit of a different feel. We're either going with Italian or Canadian horror, not comedy bullshit. And that'll be at 6 o'clock this coming week here. And then we'll have one more week's worth of stuff, which will probably fit in Byzantium in it and one or two others. So, any other final thoughts about the movie or anything you wanted to plug?
I like Canada. I have family up in Prince Edward Island. Just transferred in from up there. And the movie she uses because I love that's another thing I want to point out. When she goes into the school, the secretary is just reading a romance novel, like you see at Walmart and stuff, and she doesn't give a shit about like privacy and stuff. And she's like, I'm here from Prince Edward, yeah. And she's like, do I need that? And she's like, here's your schedule going. He's like, wait, that's it? I love how they show you how just awesome the 80s was. There's so much you could get away with back in the day. Now today, it's just like everything's all about rules, order, and you got people who are blindly following stuff. Like I said, this movie shows you how much fun the 80s was. The lady says, she's like, she even makes a joke about cocaine. She's like, I can believe the 80s are almost over. I haven't even tried cocaine yet.
That's a good line. There's some zingers in here, some one lines. Yeah, this is mid, to use your expression. I try not to think of it that way, but it is. It's just kind of there to me.
It's better than Cocaine Bear. But like I said,
it is. I don't know if it's more fun, but it's better.
If you're looking for something scary, this isn't the scary movie.
Not your film.
No, this is more. Like I said, this is more a dark comedy, with a happy ending. Yeah, yes, and it actually, like I said, I thought it was fun. It's not like that. What was it was a Hell House was the one from like last or 2 years ago where they go in the House of Mirrors and there's a killer in there killing people. It's like a fun house. I forgot what it was called, but
There's Funhouse, there's Hell House, there's a
might have
whole
been.
ton of them, all the B ones, and we only covered some of them here on
Yeah.
the Extreme Movie
Like I
Show.
said,
But
if you're
yeah,
looking for slasher stuff, this is not your slasher movie. This is
it's not.
no. You're using slasher as just for a loose for the storyline, but it's exactly it's just basically about a girl trying to connect with her mother, and just trying to save her mom's life and all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's my biggest beef with it. It presents itself as one thing, which it's not. I can't stand that.
Which I
I
knew
really just can't.
when the title's called Totally Killer, I knew it was
Like
gonna be like,
totally, oh my gosh, that was like so out of place by 1984, 85. Hello.
yes.
And that was more of a West Coast thing too. Yeah, we said it here in the South, but if you were too valley-ish, as they would say here, you get your ass beat, or people would say something to you. You just learn to speak like a freaking human being in front of other people too. I mean,
And that's the thing too. Bullying was back then.
bullying was in,
The
but it
dodgeball
was always
scene.
done in a fun sort of way.
The dodgeball, the
It was.
dodgeball scene was hilarious. She goes in, she's like, PE, can I exchange for something else? I don't do gym. And I love that the secretary lady's like, the fuck's wrong with you? Go. She goes in there, she walks in, and they're playing. All the girls, all the kids are playing dodgeball, and she's
So
like,
she meets your mom.
yeah, meets your mom, and she's a timid. She goes, I don't want to play. I don't want to play sports. She gets her head basically chucked with the ball, at least two of them, where she's bleeding nose, and I love it. And I love how the gym teacher is like, and just basically just bullying the shit out of her. Like I said, it is.
Was she really?
No, but she's telling her, prissy little girl, get in the game. She's like, she teases her like, hey, like I said, it's different back then than it is now. Kids were pretty much more. You were more. You went through everything. Hard Knocks, how life. It wasn't always glamorized like it is today.
You know what summed up the difference in her character versus the 80s? The line. It wasn't even the cocaine one.
Yeah.
When the dad drops her off so she can go meet her friend to go to like the party or whatever, and it's at night. He's standing there and he leans his head out the window or whatever, and he's looking at her and he's like, hey, why don't you just I thought you were like waiting to pick her up. And she goes, yeah, I just texted her. And he goes, why don't you just knock at the door? And he goes, she goes, ooh, rude. And I'm like, hey, that's educating somebody like me that I guess that maybe that's what people do today. They don't knock on the door because they think
I don't know.
They just text.
But the whole thing with the mom being killed in the very beginning, I thought, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like a horror movie. Because we saw her phone and she tries to cover it up. Who is this? Nobody. And it says Charlie. Who's this Charlie? Oh, is your mom cheating on his dad? But then she basically gets killed. And I'm just thinking oh shit. Is that true? Those who have sex get killed in the movies, remember? Horror movies.
That's true. If you're a virgin, you did not die.
Yeah.
That was a rule in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, if you like Freaky, the Vince Vaughn movie, where the killer swaps bodies with the girl.
I think that's better than this movie.
Yeah, which I think this movie was, but this is a
Happy Death Day even's better.
I've never watched Happy Death Day because that looks like it's more gory than this.
Not really.
Yeah, but overall, like I say, this is right in line with the Blumhouse, kind of stuff. Isn't straight up horror. They added more comedy to it, which I think is actually a good breakaway because a lot of the stuff is like it's a serious straight up horror or just slash and killing. If you're into that, that's great. But I like to have a break from that too sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said,
right, what do you got coming up tonight?
Tonight, as always, over at 8 p.m. over on Geeky Puppet Show. I will be with Zach over there, and we'll be talking about the new comic books coming out this week. So, this little preview show, and then on Thursday nights, same time, 8 p.m. Central, we do the follow up, show off the books we got from the comic book store, plus maybe some back issues we've got to as well. But Zach will not be here on Thursday, so I'll be with Eric Breen.
Easy Eric Breen, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, cool deal.
Yes. So yeah, like I said, I kind of figured this movie was going to be like Freaky. It's not going to be a serious movie. I didn't know it was even a comedy thing until I actually looked at it. But going off the cover we showed you, it looked like it was being totally 80, totally killer. I had a feeling it was going to be like a satire. It wasn't going to be not when I say satire, not like a scary movie. That was way over the top.
Yeah, right.
This was entertaining. I thought it was actually pretty good. But I understand it's not everybody's cup of tea. If you want the serious stuff, go watch The Babysitter.
Yeah, it's a little bit darker.
It's a little more intense.
All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Totally Killer from Amazon Prime. Their recently released
Yeah.
80s throwback film. That's all I'm going to describe it. Shame on you, Amazon, for not marketing this correctly
Oh,
or
the
or
music on here is pretty
interestingly.
good too. They actually had 80s music in here too.
Yeah, but it was the late 80s stuff that
I love all 80s, bro.
again they missed the whole hair metal band stuff that was people would play at parties a lot. I'm waiting for somebody to have I'm waiting personally for somebody to have an 80s spring break movie where they're playing Tone Loc, and if you know what I'm talking about, that's all I gotta
Funk,
say.
Funky
Or
Cold
even
Medina.
Vanilla Ice, because that was huge when it hit, and that was like 90 91, so all around that time frame, and you still had hair bands nobody's tapped at yet. When somebody
Yeah,
does, they'll print money.
you never hear Poison or Def Leppard or or Motley Crue in any of these horror movies early in the 80s
Nope.
because they can't afford it.
They're just being they're spending a lot of money on stuff and then being cheap when it counts, and that's the bottom line with Amazon. That's why it's like, if
Yeah,
you're gonna go for it, Amazon, have the balls to go big.
I think it was
Don't go mid like this.
Take Me Down to the Paradise City, Guns N' Roses, the only one I've ever seen in a movie. That was Can't Hardly Wait in the 90s.
But
Other than
again, 90s though.
I know but I said I've never really seen any of the hair bands really in any of the 80s movies.
Well, it's like that one song that got really huge in this last season of Stranger Things. It's not a bad song. I kind of remember it. It was not the song that it is now. People were
Like
like, "Oh my god, this 80s music is incredible. This song was such a big hit." No, it wasn't.
Tainted Love was the Babysitter movie.
Yeah, there you go.
And yeah, so overall, like I said, I'm giving it about a 7 or 8, probably a 7.5. It's straight to the point. It kind of knows it's making fun of the thing, but I mean, if it's trying to be a political, it's backfiring on it, and that's what makes it even better.
It's a 5 out of 10 for me. It's right there in the middle. I could take it or leave it, which
Yeah.
isn't bad for a lot of stuff that's out there today. But
It's a lot. It's a lot of movies I could just basically I choose not to watch. I'm kind of glad that I finally started to watch this because I if you weren't reviewing this wasn't a movie I really grabbed my attention. I'm more into movies like Short Circuit or some of the obscure 80s stuff. I've been going back and watching that like oh yeah, turns out her mom who's younger is a sci-fi nerd. They're watching after her friend Tiffany gets murdered. They're down in her mom's place, and in her basement they're watching RoboCop, and they just get blown away. But
women did
see,
not watch RoboCop. I'm just gonna say that right now. It's too graphic and too violent.
I don't know.
They
You
were
don't.
not in the theater, bro.
Well, no, you're watching it on home video or TV. It was on TV. Who knows?
I'll withhold comment. But it's the 80s, so +1 for that. All right, there you have it, everybody. Thanks for watching, listening. Thanks for showing up and letting everybody know that we exist. Appreciate your suggestions. We're trying to hit as many of those as we can here. I mentioned there in chat, RDV, I don't know if you saw it, that I did watch the trailer for Byzantium, and it looked interesting to me. I thought it was well done. It's very luscious, very Euro-ish.
Is that the Sean Patrick Flanery?
I don't know, but it's one that I know Princess had mentioned a while back. We'll start doing some of it. We have Night Killer and a couple other some people threw out there, but we'll see what we can get to here.
No, the one I was talking about is like the Fallen ripoff.
No, I don't know. I just remember going, "Oh, the women are here." It's kind of a good trailer. It's kind of lush, is the term I've been using tonight, like a Dan Curtis production. Good night, all. Stay extreme.
Nothing's like Dan Curtis.